I've featured a number of Nevada Grenchen here on my channel, and I have said a number of times that when they reissue a watch, they really get the details right. In fact, they make a watch that's almost indistinguishable from the original vintage watch. However, it's thoroughly modern. Today, we're taking a look at Nevada Grenchen's latest release, and this is a watch that is very rare on the vintage market. It was their highest end watch when they came out with it back in the 1960s and 70s, and today they have reissued this watch in a very true recreation of that original GMT. I have one hands-on to show you guys. This is the black dial. They are making two different dials. We'll talk about the other limited edition dial during the video as well. I have the black dial here hands-on, so let's flip the camera and take a look at the Antarctic GMT by Nevada Grenchen. Nevada Grenchen seem to get it right every single time they reissue a watch. They get the dimensions right, they get the look right, and really all they're doing is reissuing vintage watches from their history. And this is yet another vintage reissue from Nevada Grenchen that they're getting everything right. This is their Antarctic GMT, and look at this. It looks like a vintage watch. It feels like a modern watch. It gets the sizing of a vintage watch, which already was a pretty large watch considering when it came out. This was 36 millimeters back then. It's 36 millimeters right now. However, you do get this dual crown setup because this was a super compressor. This is no longer a super compressor, but you still get the inner rotating bezel, and it's a little bit distorted from that acrylic crystal. And it is a boxed acrylic crystal. Look at this. When I turn it on its side, it's a very high boxed acrylic crystal. And I would not want this in sapphire, and I would not want this in mineral. I want this in a plexiglass or an acrylic crystal. And that's because if you knock this against something, it will just have a little nick in it. It won't get destroyed. It won't crack. And it's easy to replace. These look fantastic. And if you get scratches in it, you could just buff it out. I love an acrylic crystal. I prefer it to a sapphire crystal in certain situations. And this is one of those situations. Look how beautiful this watch looks, and a lot has to do with that crystal. That inner rotating bezel, it's black, white, and yellow. So it's a 24-hour track, half of it in black and white, and the other half yellow and black. It looks really good. You have applied indices, those are loomed, and then the hands, those are loomed as well. So you have an hour and minutes hand that are loomed. Those are stick hands. Then you have a needle for the seconds hand that is not loomed. And then you have a really cool GMT hand, and that GMT hand is checkered in black and red. And against that black dial, it looks phenomenal. The top crown controls that inner rotating bezel. The bottom crown controls the time, the date, and of course that GMT hand. This is a SOPROD movement, so it's a SOPROD C125. If you're not familiar with that movement, it's a very reliable movement. And not only that, it's really good looking. Unfortunately, you can't see it from the case back on this watch, but they did put a special case back. I'll show you that in just a second. You can't see it, unfortunately. It's a good looking movement. It's also pretty thin. It's a higher grade movement from SOPROD, and obviously that's why it is so thin. It does operate like an ETA movement or a Salida movement. So that means it's a military GMT or an office GMT, which again, a lot of people prefer, some people don't, but it's a very functional GMT. When you turn it on its side, you're going to see it's very thin. This is around 11 millimeters thick. That's including that giant boxed acrylic crystal. So when you think about it, that is a lot of what that thickness is. This is a very thin watch considering, and with that acrylic crystal, it comes out to only 11 millimeters thick. Again, this is a 36 millimeter watch, and you have around a 42 millimeter lug to lug. And then, of course, the case back. The case back is screwed in. Both crowns are screwed in and both crowns are signed. The case back has that little gold logo in the back, the Nevada Grenchen, and then you have a little penguin that is polished on there. It looks fantastic. These case backs that they do on these watches, obviously they're vintage inspired and they do a really good job with these. Again, it's screwed in. You do only get 50 meters of water resistance, even though you have the screwed in crowns. I'm not sure why you're only getting 50 meters. I would like to see 100 meters of water resistance on this watch. But with that being said, 50 meters is pretty sufficient. Bezel action on here is smooth. There are faint clicks and it is bi-directional. It feels really nice and smooth. Very, very well done. Setting the time is typical for an ETA movement or SOPROD movement. Basically, pull it out into the first position. You could change the date and the GMT time. So that changes the date in that position or in that direction, and then in the other direction, you're changing that GMT hand. You can see that GMT hand actually reaches the indices and is in black and white. It looks really good against that black background. I think it looks really cool. And then pull it all the way out, and then you can adjust the time. That's really it. Very easy, very simple, straightforward. The case is all polished. You have these angular lugs. They're very, very short lugs. You have a barrel case, very 1970s inspired. This is a reissue of a watch that was available in the 1960s and 1970s. It's a very rare watch. At the time when this came out, it was one of the highest end watches that Nevada Grenchen made, and it looks like a high-end watch. This feels like a high-end watch. It's just really nice. I love the look of this watch, and I love it paired with this strap. They also made a Tropic Dial limited edition of 99 pieces. That one is awesome. It gets a brown dial. It's a Tropic brown dial. It looks like a vintage version of this watch. This looks like a vintage version of the original as well. However, obviously there's no patina here, so it doesn't look like an old watch. This looks like a brand new watch, maybe an old stock or something like that. The Tropic version looks like a vintage watch. Today on my wrist, I have the Nevada Grenchen Chrono King, the salmon dial. This is such a good looking chronograph and extremely affordable. I think they still have these available. If they do, definitely check this out on their website. These are phenomenal chronographs for the money. And there it is on my 7.5 inch wrist. This wears like a 37 or a 38 millimeter watch because of the shape of the case. This fits really nicely on my 7.5 inch wrist. I think it looks like a vintage watch, but again, it feels like a modern watch. Price on this watch in the US is $1,600. Considering what you're getting here, I think that's worth it because you are getting a pretty high grade movement. And overall, this is a really good looking watch. Again, I have a 7.5 inch wrist. This is a 36 millimeter watch with around 42 millimeter lug to lug, 11 millimeter thickness. Well, there you go. Lume is okay. There's decent amount of lume on the indices. I wish there was a little bit more on the hands, and I also wish there was a little bit of lume on the second hand. However, they made this so faithful to the original watch. I'm sure this is how the original watch was without lume on the second hand, so it makes sense that they did not add it to the second hand on this watch. So I do get it, although, you know, I wish there was a little bit of lume. Really good looking watch, really nicely made. Great movement inside. This is a great watch, I think. In my opinion, they are getting it right. They keep on coming out with really cool watches, and I cannot wait to see the next watch they reissue, because basically that's what they've been doing. They've been reissuing all of their historic watches, and they keep on coming up with some amazing watches to reissue like this one. Tell me what you think down in the comments below. What do you think of the Antarctic GMT? I want to hear from you guys. Please also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. It is super helpful for the channel, and I very much appreciate it. I'll put a link to this watch down in the description below. If you are interested in it, definitely check this watch out. It is really cool. Anyway, guys, thank you for logging on. Thank you for watching this video. I'll catch you guys in the next video.